So I went to the Final Fantasy VII Remake Orchestra World Tour in Los Angeles, and I wanted to talk about my experience, my favorite tracks, and some of the merch that I got. Let's get odd. So first off, I want to say two things right at the top. Number one, there wasn't any sort of news in regards to Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 2. I know sometimes when they hold these events, people might anticipate that there might be some sort of news or speculation or anything like that, but there was nothing, just to get that out of the way. Number two, I'm going to be going through some of my favorite tracks, and for me, I had no idea what the track listing was, and some of them were such great surprises for me that I wouldn't want to spoil that for anyone else. So if you have tickets for a future show, or if you plan on seeing the show in the future, you may want to skip this video because I wouldn't want to spoil those surprise tracks for you. So let's start right at the beginning. So in the beginning of the show, they started a little late. They started like 7:15. It was supposed to start 7 o'clock. But when they started, so as the audience member, you're thinking, what are they going to start with? Maybe opening, probably bombing mission. But the first thing they started with, which it makes sense, is the prelude. And I'm just going to say, when they first start, like when the harp goes, it's like insta tears. Have you heard of Instacart? Well, this was insta tears. I'm assuming you know what I'm talking about. I forget when this show was originally scheduled, but this show was postponed twice due to COVID. So we've been waiting a very long time for this show. So for the first notes to finally happen, it's just like just an overwhelming feeling, like finally this is happening, and it's awesome. And the prelude was amazing. So if you're familiar with the format of the concert, there's a big screen up top, and there was two screens on the side as well. And for the prelude, they showed a little bit of the original Final Fantasy also, which was pretty cool. I don't want to go through the whole track list. I gotta say, there's no bad track on there. It's all really great tracks, really wonderfully performed, led by Arnie Roth. So here I'll throw the first surprise. They performed an orchestral arrangement of Stand Up, which is one of the tracks that plays when Cloud is at the Honeybee Inn. That was a really cool surprise. I had no idea they were going to play that. So here was my biggest surprise for the night. And I would hate to be the one to spoil this for you, but the biggest surprise for me was they played The Descendant of Shinobi. But not only that, it was the arrangement from Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade, which was just, I wasn't expecting at all. I know that Arnie Roth mentioned that a lot of work goes into this in a short amount of time in terms of rehearsal and putting everything together. And at the same time, this concert has been postponed for months and months, probably more than a year at this point. So I understand that they had time to put together this orchestral arrangement of this track and rehearse it, but I was not expecting it at all. It was such a great surprise. I really love that track because you go listen to that original track when you first meet Yuffie in the original Final Fantasy VII, and it's kind of almost like a jaunty track. It's like really playful, and then they arranged it into this kind of really intense up-tempo arrangement, and they played it at the concert, and that was the biggest surprise for me. I thought it was really cool. So towards the end of the show, they played Hollow and Yosh, is it pronounced Yosh? He was a special guest, and that was very cool for him to be there and perform the song Hollow. And for the encore, they played two songs for the quote-unquote encore. They played Aerith's theme, and then they played One Winged Angel, of course. I mean, it's kind of expected at this point, but it never disappoints. It's such a great track to end the concert on, and they play it very well. So let me get to the merch. I'm actually wearing a shirt that we bought at the venue. I'm gonna be honest, I'm not sure what this logo is. If anyone knows what that is, let me know. But it's cool. But let me show you the back. I should put on some pants first. So I got a shirt for myself and a shirt for my wife. I should say my wife got it because my wife paid for it. She makes the big bucks. Let me kind of get this out of the way. So I bought this book. It's the Final Fantasy VII Remake Orchestral World Tour booklet. and I'm not sure how I feel about it. We don't have to get into like a long argument about is it worth it or is it not, but it's just I'm trying to share my experience. I'm looking through it and there's some cool things, for example, like some Q&A with like Arnie Roth and Nobuo Uematsu, and yeah, that's cool. That stuff is cool. And there's some other Q&A. There's Masashi Hamauzu, Mitsuro Suzuki. So there's some cool behind the scenes stuff that you get. There's Yosh, Kazushige Nojima, and then there's like kind of ads for other merch, which, you know, I don't mind, but it's kind of weird. There's some credits. So my wife mentioned that this is the type of thing that they might give you for free at a Comic-Con. And we paid $25 for this. So is it worth it? I can't say that for anyone. Do I think it's worth it? I'm not sure. I'm leaning towards a no. Is it cool to have like an official, quote unquote, official booklet from the concert? Sure. It's just like memorabilia, merch type thing. It's just a little weird. I'm just saying $25 for this. See, it was the one thing on the merch table that I felt was like weird. And you know, someone could argue like, if you don't want it, don't get it. Or if you don't think it's worth it, why'd you buy it, blah, blah, blah. That's true. But I was at the merch table. I saw it. I got excited. I wanted it. I don't regret it. It's just it's a questionable thing. Like $25 for this. I don't know. I can't speak for anyone but myself. And then I got 2 CDs. So I got the first Distant Worlds CD, which I couldn't remember which CDs I had and didn't have. So I was kind of guessing, going from memory. And then I got A New World, the first CD. I may or may not already have digital copies of these, but it's also cool to get the physical copies. I'm just trying to fill out my collection. You can't really go wrong with a Final Fantasy soundtrack. I'm obviously a huge fan of the game and the soundtracks. Any arrangement that they come out with, it's always a home run. So I'm kind of just showing off my collection at this point. So here's the plush that we got. I think they made a post prior to the concert saying they're gonna have limited quantities of merch, and they're gonna set up around 3:30 p.m. before the 7 p.m. show. And they mentioned especially the plushes would sell out. So my wife saw this and she's like, I want it. She didn't even know what a chocobo was or is. It says play Chocobo, plush, Chocobo's Dungeon, Chocobo Black Mage. This was the only plush available when we got to the merch table. I think this was $40. So that's all I have in terms of merch. Overall, to kind of sum this video up, we had a really great time. My wife had a great time. She has never played Final Fantasy. She's not a quote-unquote fan because she's not familiar with any of the things, but she really loved it. The musicians were really great. Arnie Roth did a wonderful job leading the orchestra, and it was just an amazing time. And for the concert to be postponed twice over, more than a year at this point, and finally for it to happen, it was a wonderful experience. If you're on the fence, if you want to check one of these shows out, I highly recommend it. We were not up close. We were up high. I think it was called the lower mezzanine. We were kind of far from the stage, but we could see the screen. We could see the musicians. We could hear everything fine. And we had a really great time. So I highly recommend checking out one of these shows. Hopefully it won't be too long before we're able to check out another one. But if you're interested at all in checking out one of these shows, I highly recommend it. It was a really amazing experience. I haven't been to a ton of shows or concerts in my life. I've been to a handful. But for me, the ones that stick out are the Final Fantasy ones. I think I've been to 3 at this point. 2 were Distant World, and this one was the Final Fantasy VII Remake Orchestral World Tour. And they're just great concerts. And a lot of it is nostalgia, I will admit that. But the music is, for my money, the best written music ever created, probably. I mean, I know a lot of people would disagree, but that's just my opinion. So I urge you to check it out. Thank you for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Stay odd and keep on playing. Square Enix, this special edit version with the bonus disc, I believe it's $77.77. We've been on the waiting list since the beginning of time. At this point, Vincent's coming out of his coffin. He's like, I'm still on that waiting list. Is that thing in stock yet? Wake me up when that thing comes back in stock. I'll give you the monies. I want that bonus disc, please. Please, por favor.